5 years for an ounce or a pound of weed. You know, so you still got people in prison
Right
because
now.
of that. Okay, they should be about to get out, but you still got people in prison for that. So, you know, that's where do we start? You know, what do we do to sit down? You know, with the legislators, with the judges, you know, with law enforcement. This is a very legitimate question you've asked. So, yes, I'm in agreement with you that half ounce, but also we got to do the but.
I'm taking my phone.
You know, we got plan A or what's plan B, C, and D. So there's, you know, there's other things to think about. Yeah, they stopped me. I had 4 bags in my pocket. They said, "Have a nice day." He asked me how many joints I just smoked, how many bowls I just hit before I got here, how many bong hits I took before I left the house. You know, so what would you rather happen? You or a family member get hurt or killed in a car wreck by somebody stoned? I would rather get hurt or killed in a car wreck by somebody that would be legally drunk at .08. Does that make sense?
Either way, you did.
I know I'm asking y'all a question too, but we've got to, there's more than just saying, hey, I say, yeah, do the half ounce, make it legal. And trust me, I'm with you on that. But we've also got to think of other things to go with that. Before they brought it down to .08, when it was .10, I think it actually went to 9, then to 8. So you know, it was.
Are you aware that is one of Governor Cooper's task?
I'm sorry.
Are you aware that is Governor Cooper's task force recommendations is to decriminalize marijuana and only a half ounce? That is in his actual recommendations that will be going up to the General Assembly in December. So he put that in, just so that you're aware, it's already been up there. Okay. So it's
Well,
not
I was aware of Cooper
new.
trying to do something, but I'll be honest with you, I don't watch the news because I don't want to see his face.
I don't know what the governor is trying to put in his task force when it comes to police reform. You might want to know that.
Let's legalize it and grow it in Cumberland County. We have great soil and water
That
for
is one
it.
of the
That's another thing.
Hey, you heard it from the soil
We
lady.
make a lot of money, tax it.
Yeah.
We could grow tobacco before, we can grow marijuana here now. It's medicine, it's not just a drug for fun.
I'm good if it's for medicine. The issue with it is when it's recreation.
What?
And it goes into when it's made, when it's recreation. Because the issue, just like Wyndham was saying, and I know I don't supposed to be involved in this, but we have a lot of opinions, but the issue is the consequences. Because we're talking about making things legal and not figuring out the consequences. Because if you start looking at Colorado and some of the other places that have made it legal, they're having issues that they don't talk about in public.
Like what?
Because they're making so much money.
What kind of issues
You
do they
don't
have?
talk about the increase of drug use among youth. That's turning them out to be addicts. That's leading to other things. They're not.
The kids
talking
didn't smoke
about
weed
it.
before? They legalized it?
They legalized it.
I said before they legalized it, kids wasn't smoking weed?
No, not as much. It's not as accessible because
That's
no.
not true.
It is
That's
true.
not true. They've been
because-
smoking weed when it's
but
been in
the
legal
majority-
places forever.
But the majority wasn't. The majority wasn't, and because it's easy
Oh,
access.
yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm sure it's more than that.
But regardless, you now have a situation because it wasn't brought out, and that's the question that we're here in North Carolina. Before we're talking about making things legal, that we need to go through the process, do the pros and cons, and see how we can be proactive instead of reactive.
So you feel like making it legal is going to affect the children? That's what you feel like?
I feel like, no, back to the question that this has not been thought out. And even with the task force that Cooper is saying, you're saying make it legal, but once you make it legal, how do you deal with all the questions that are coming up? See, what's happening in the law is that we continually are making things legally, and when it comes out, just like the 3 strikes, guess what happened? People started plea bargaining, and now we have a whole bunch of people that's locked up, even with the war on drugs. Now, because we have an issue because it wasn't thought out. Isn't it time for us to stop just making laws and to make things happen and not thinking it out? We have learned enough in society to realize that, okay, it's a consequence to everything. When are we going to get it right? Just like the red flag laws and the other things that are trying to be passed, but nobody's thinking out the consequences because they're thinking it's a solution. That's all.
You're right. When you answer one question, that answer brings about another question.
Exactly.
You know, I don't care if you ever do interrogation or interview with a criminal homicide suspect, a rape suspect, blah, blah, blah. Any question you ask them, their answer leads you to another question before you finally get to a definitive answer. Now, going back to her, the half ounce, what about this? Half ounce is made legal, okay? But if you are caught with it in your possession, you're gonna get charged with just confiscate the dope, spread it out on the ground, say, have a nice day. I mean, there's a B, there's plan B. Versus charging somebody, okay, it's legal, but if we catch you in your car, and it's obvious you're in smoking, so we're gonna smell it, and you look in your eyes, and you do like, there's old saying, two peapods in a snowbank or something. That chances are that you're high, you're driving. So if we got the dope, we take the dope, we pour it on the ground, and tell you to have a nice day. Then again, I'm putting somebody on the road that's high again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, that's just.
I mean, how are they supposed to get it without having it?
I hate to say it, but it's just,
I think that this is the most important part of this entire conversation, is that there are real issues that our community has to deal with. And when we start, and as a judge, whatever the law says is what the law says. That's a judicial position, is that we are to fairly and impartially administer the law. But I think the bigger issue that we're dealing with here is that there are issues that affect our community. And when we start electing officials, I believe we need to elect people who have a record of being based on supporting and building and strengthening the community. Because all of these issues, regardless of what the law is, regardless of how the justice system is intersecting with the lives of individuals, if you don't have experience dealing with a lot of different facets of people's lives and dealing with real issues that affect real people, we're going to continue to see the same degradation of our community. So regardless of how anybody feels about marijuana, I think that what's more important here is that we have a duty to our community to build, strengthen, and uplift. And we can only do that by actively working on building our communities. Thanks.
Okay. This lady right here had something. Cool. Not a good one.
I have a question, but before I ask my question, I have something to say, and then we can stop talking about marijuana. I'd like to share a little experience with marijuana. For starters, I'm totally fine with it when it's for medicine. I have mitochondrial disease and autism, and I know a lot of veterans and MOA and stuff. I'm very aware that it can really help relieve pain from people. I'm also fine with it when it comes to recreational use if it's in private. I'm not really a big fan of it being out in public for non-consensual people who don't want marijuana exposed to their systems, to have it in their system, because you can get high from airborne marijuana if you're not smoking it yourself. I have a cousin in New York, and marijuana ruined his life. He started smoking when he was a teenager. He was a very bright young man, had a great future ahead of him to work in a factory, but he got caught up with addiction, and then he went on to harder stuff because marijuana soon became not enough. He started with cocaine.
He got addicted to weed?
Yes, and that is an actual
She said he
thing
got
that can
addicted.
happen.
I never heard about getting addicted to weed. That's what I'm asking.
This is my experience.
It's not
Please don't
addicted
argue
to-
with my experience.
That's what I'm
Okay.
Who's arguing with you? I'm talking to them, and I said I've never heard of that. Nobody arguing with you. What is up with y'all? Y'all come, never mind.
Like I said, I'm autistic. A lot of people are talking online.
Apparently, because they came in.
Now I can barely leave New York because it ruined his life and now he's not incarcerated. Anyway, my question is for you specifically. You're running against Diane Wheatley, correct?
around so she can yes.
Okay, so Diane Wheatley has done a lot for our community. She has a lot of rewards to prove it.
such as lowering taxes on military retirement, and even recently helped with a bill to help catch criminals by DNA usage, like using past fingerprints in previous crimes to catch violent offenders of violent offending. I would like to know what you can do, and I'd like for you to explain why you would be a better choice than Diane Wheatley, who is one of the most productive representatives in the entire NC General Assembly. Thank you.
Well, let me say to you, any answer that I give you would not satisfy what you just responded. Any answer would not satisfy, because you have already looked at and already chosen and made a decision. But what I would say to you, what you say that Diane Wheatley already have did since she's been in the General Assembly, I like to see that by a freshman representative. A freshman representative cannot accomplish that in 1 year. I would like to see it. I'm not talking about her being around. You were saying what she had done in the General Assembly. I've been around for 40 years, and I can list you the things that I have done in this community that are far greater. As you just mentioned, you know, we was talking about the driving. We had an issue again, driving by blind.
Sure do.
What she was talking about.
All day long. Still got
We
it.
had 2,800 African Americans that were stopped by law enforcement, and 232 whites that were stopped. We had to address that issue because it was dividing our community.
What can you do about that?
We addressed that because what was happening was police officers.
It's not what I asked.
You asked what was dying in.
So,
I'm sure.
I'm asking what you would do when you're in office.
I think it's,
He didn't ask that.
let me stop. He's saying that they had an incident here and the issue was driving while black. And the issue, and he brought up how many blacks that were arrested and how many whites that was arrested. And he took on that issue, and this is his response, because you asked, what have he done, or what will he do?
You asked what have he done.
So, this is what he's trying to tell you, what he's done, and because he's worked on this issue about driving while black.
But what would you do in the future? If you were to win?
I will continue. My vision is to grow Cumberland County from a physical standpoint of view. Right now, Cumberland County is a tier 1 community, meaning that we are one of the 40, at 100 counties, we are in the 40 lowest percentile. Cumberland County must improve its infrastructure. It must do that if we are to attract new businesses. Right now, the beauty that we have now is the improvement of I-295 from Cumberland County to 40. Once they improve that, it's going to be a big community for Raleigh. Where Raleigh housing now is really too high. They are going to start moving, the younger generation like yourself is going to start moving away from Wake County because of the taxes. And for you, a young person, 35 minutes to Raleigh, nothing but a pit stop. And you save maybe $400 or $700 or $1,000 a year on taxes. That's one thing. I want to make sure that Cumberland County can grow from a technology standpoint of view. We got to attract industries. We got to do that. And we must be ready to look at what it takes to attract new industries. A lot of people really don't want what we call to provide incentives. We got to start paying more incentives to attract these new businesses.
But those incentives cost taxpayer money, and you want to reduce taxes, but you're taking tax money to do that.
Well, you have to look at it from a standpoint of view. Amazon can build its own facility. Don't need a dime from the state. Okay? Don't need a dime from the state. But companies come where they can get incentives. They just read it.
What's the sense can you elaborate? Because I know Christine.
Now what I'm saying is that it's depending, for instance, if the company comes to Fayetteville, then they're gonna say that we would like to have, I'm just saying that they ask for these things.
Okay.
We like to have water, we like to have sewers, we like to have access, okay, road construction. You know, these are type things that then that community give them incentive based on their job performance. If they say that they're going to have, let's say 2,000 jobs and maintain those 2,000 jobs for 5 years, and then if they don't do that and they drop down to 1,000 jobs, then a portion of that incentive is taken back because they didn't meet the requirement for a 5-year period of time. But if you're not willing to give incentives, industries are not going to come.
So are these incentives either tax breaks or are these incentives
It
like
can be a
money?
combination.
Like money of taxpayers'
Yeah,
money?
it can be a combination. It can be deferred taxes for 5 years as part of it. It can be infrastructure. It can be a number of things that will attract them and make that pot of money large enough wherein that industry will come. Industry, believe it, Amazon don't need a dime from the state to come. Don't need a dime.
Thank you so much for that. Do we have any questions? All right, and let's try not to be attacking to any of the candidates. We're just asking questions and we want answers. We don't want anybody to attack them because they are here and we don't want, I'm getting a lot of comments from folks saying that they feel like the candidates are being attacked. So I just want to make sure that we're just asking questions that are relevant to what needs to happen on this upcoming election. That's all. So we have another question. Oh.
So,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Floyd, you had, because she was speaking about the information on Diane Wheatley in her freshman year on the General Assembly. However, you had worked hand in hand with John Soka and other representatives throughout, to include Marvin Lucas and other delegates within the Assembly, to bring laws up that have benefited North Carolina. Can you discuss any of those things that have made a change prior to, Diane Wheatley?
Well, since I served, I have worked with John Soka, and I have worked with all the Cumberland County delegations, and I have worked with Wesley Meredith and Marvin Lucas. All of those individuals to bring, as an example, when they built Spring Lake was going to be divided by 2 communities, one on the east side and one on the west side. But we made the state build a bridge. Although they said the bridge going nowhere, but if they did not, as poor as Spring Lake would have to have 2 fire departments because they would not be able to cross 24-27. That's one. We also got $800,000 for Fayetteville State in order to build the couple of sinkholes that's been there for about 7 years. We also got Wesley Meredith to keep $5.5 million in budget so that Fayetteville State can build a wellness center. We got $6.5 million. If you've seen the Veteran Cemetery and seen how it is, and one thing that they wanted and one thing that I fought for was to make sure that they had a sprinkler system because the loved one wanted to see what? Green grass. And they're getting a new facility, maintenance facility there. The hospital that you see with the resident program, with Cameron College, that was $7.5 million, and Cameron College put in $3.5 million to make sure that we have a resident program at Capefield Valley Hospital. Once that program is functional, it will be a $990 million mega for Capefield Valley Hospital. And when we had the water problem down in Grace Creek, I was on that
We
committee.
still have water problems in Grace Creek.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, okay. But before,
You can be with it,
I am. I'm getting ready to say.
to measure the PFAS that's in Capefield, we didn't even have that. But I
Okay.
was on that committee.
We're gonna cut you short just a little bit. You've done a lot. Thank you so much. You've done a lot, but we want some more questions because we want some of these other candidates to answer.
I'm just wondering.
Oh.
Yeah, I have
Oh,
a question for Soil
I'm
and
sorry.
Water. But first, I want to give a shout out to Jonathan because he's amazing. Me and Tony have been working on this project out there at the Yumas Community Garden. And when we needed help, he came out, he put his boots on, he brought us hay, he came and got dirty, he shoveled crap with me. He was amazing. So I just want to tell everybody that because he was very, very helpful.
Thank you,
But
Jonathan.
As far as Christina, I want to know what are we doing for Grace Creek? I come from an agricultural family in Alabama where I grew up with 150 cows on my farm, raising animals and doing all that. I want to look to purchase land out that way, but I will not raise my animals out there because of the water problem. So how is Cumberland County and what you're going to do for our community combating that issue?
Okay, so let me start with several months ago, it was actually September, the beginning of September, $20 million was given to the county commissioners of Cumberland County to solve this problem, to just start with it, right? So, unless we get the right county commissioners on the board, John Soka, who's been working with the Gen X problem for almost a decade, he's heavily involved, and even Veronica Jones, she's fantastic. If we don't get the right county commissioners, then that money is for nothing. I can be on Soil and Water and I can say, here's my expert advice, you can do these things for the issues. There's this item, this magical item will mitigate it. I'm not going to use big fancy words, but this will mitigate the problem and help solve it. But if we don't have the county commissioners who will listen to the Soil and Water Board, it doesn't matter. Because even the Soil and Water Board that exists now, they presented some issues and problems to the county commissioners. The first meeting they were present. The second meeting they finally were heard. But if we don't have the right people deciding where that money goes, it won't even matter what I do.
So then my second question is, who is your ideal group of right people? Who do you think will help you to do exactly what you need to do and what we need as a community?
Well, I'll definitely say John Soka is the number one because he and I have worked together and he's shown me, because once he found out I had a degree in geological engineering, he's like, hey, look at this research we have. And it's just like packets and packets and packets. So all the research has been done to know how to mitigate it. It exists. We don't need to hire any more consulting firms. We don't need to pay anybody else. They know what to do. We just need people to do it. So I would definitely say John. And I also know Veronica very well. I think she's fantastic. I know Mr. Ross is also super into this. He does. He's in Grace Creek area. He's in the county. It's very important to him. But overall, yeah. So I would say primarily John Soka. I have to admit. The research he's done and he's gotten his hands dirty to figure out the problem, and that's why I know some people are disappointed he's not running for state representative, but I'm also glad he's not, because until we have someone like him on the county commissioner board to really push the water problem, which is a problem.
It is an issue.
We're not going to fix it. And I know, the farming people that, the Good Seeds farm that come to Tony Brown's event, they have special wells that the city and the county have given them so that they can use the water for farming. So I know that the corporation knows that they have done something wrong.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but we are gonna have one last question. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you got a question too? Okay.
About the water situation, I know you mentioned a couple people that was suffering. My water is actually affected out in Grace Creek, and to this day, or at least in the beginning, it was Kirk Demier was the only person that was coming to those meetings, even before he was running. that was going out there to check on the community. I have not seen anybody else out there in forever, nor the beginning, and so I did want to put that out there. I do know one of the people that you did mention did help bring some benefit to the community, such as myself, but I did want to let it be known, Kurt Devier was the main and mostly only person really fighting for me and my community.
And we got a meeting tomorrow about it.
Yes, and I just wanted to throw that out there.
We got a meeting tomorrow about the next one.
And let me say this as the last question. The same committee she's saying that John Soper was on, I served on the same committee.
Great. Okay, you had a question? You had a
Yeah,
question?
just real quick.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, this is to Frank McNeil. You're going to be going for Senate, and what is your position on the Second Amendment? You talked about gun control. Recently, you had the shooting, the AR-15, and Mr. Floyd, you can be on the Assembly too if elected, re-elected. I just want to know if you agree or disagree with what Mr. McNeil is about to say. And if you disagree, kind of explain why you disagree with what he's saying. My question is, what legislation are you going to bring up with regard to gun control in North Carolina?
I don't have any specific legislation in mind right now. I'm a gun owner. I own 2 rifles, 2 shotguns. I enjoy shooting. We've got a problem though with people shooting each other for no reason. They just, the 15-year-old went out there and I don't know if they still know why. He goes out and just shoots people. And so we've somehow got to, all of us come together and try to address how can we curtail just this terrible violence, school shootings. In Moore County, we had a nursing home that went and shot up. And so there's no easy answer. If there was, it would have been done long ago. But and there's a lot of laws on the books now that that I don't know if they're all being enforced, but we've got to somehow work together and not get in our tribes and say either we got to have total gun control or no gun control. We've got gun control. You can't have automatic weapons. You can't have bazookas or Stinger missiles. So we've got control. We've just got to make sure we're doing the best we can to keep our citizens safe and not be afraid to talk about it.
Thank you so much.
Discuss possibilities and then try to work together where we got a consensus that will hopefully make our community safe.
Would you vote against assault weapons if that was proposed?
1 minute or less, please.
I mean, I want Floyd to address that gun.
Yes.
I want to know
Yes.
is your position to ban people from owning assault weapons, which we call assault weapons?
Yeah, I don't think we can ban people from owning what they own now. It might be a good idea to slow down the new sales of them. But we certainly can't just go take guns away from people that have been legal for so long and that they bought legally and have owned legally now.
Thank you. Mr. Floyd?
He said yeah.
Yes.
Oh, he said yeah.
You want that assault rifles banned.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
You feel
So,
it should be banned? I'm asking you feel it should be
I don't think it should
banned?
be banned. But my question, you agree with what he said, Mr. Floyd, his position?
No, you have a 2-part question.
That's the first part. Okay, the first part. Okay.
For the amendment, the Second Amendment, it looked at home. Okay. Home.
What do you mean, home?
The protection of one home.
I disagree with that, but that's your
Okay.
position. I mean, that's what you believe, but I don't
I mean-
think that's the reason why the Second Amendment is.
No, it gives you the right to bear arms.